Part of the challenges we have in our country today is that we are too often seen as the state that is as political entities, but we don't realize that you've got to bring something to the table to be worthy of that. And so, in our summit, we're going into various sectors of development, education, health, infrastructure, you name it, power. But more importantly and critically, essence is to an economic race, because you will have millions of people who are contributing and growing the economy of the state. And the social ramifications are incredible. There's crime, whatever it is, all that is issues with that. Your Excellency, this program is not going to end tomorrow. That's the formal part of it.
No.
I believe that think tanks will be put in place to address critical issues and come up with policies, because every sector of the state must have a policy that is driven, and you as the chief executive will ensure complete compliance with these policies and results achieved. So they're target-based policies, whether it's education, whether it's health, whether it's infrastructure. You have to make it happen, and I know that that is the seal that you bring to the table. Several years ago, I went to Malaysia and I met with the then Prime Minister, and we were discussing extensively oil palm. The story is that they got the oil palm from Nigeria and they did something else with it.
I'll give you that. Sorry.
He asked me to meet with the Minister of Agriculture. When I went to see the minister, he told me he couldn't meet with me until the following week because he was busy. Now, this sounded strange to me, because if the president or prime minister asks you to see one of his aides, of course you think you'll get immediate audience. But it wasn't so. When I went back to the prime minister, he apologized and said he had the minister had a report to submit before the end of the week, and that report would determine whether he had attained his target. And if you don't attain your targets, 3 strikes, you're out. So he says, I don't fire ministers, they fire themselves. Now, what that brought to the fore was that these are people that are result driven, and there are no sentiments. If we're going in this direction, we have to deliver. To retain such an officer when he's not delivering is clearly at the expense of the rest of the state. Now, you've got to look at where we have comparative advantage, and there's several, whether it's agriculture, industry, and all that. In preparing for this occasion, I realized one thing. We have probably in this state, more than any other state, the largest gas flares, and we are only utilizing 1%. In Nigeria, we only utilize 1% of our total gas reserves. And one of the most successful companies, in River State, is the Indorama Petrochemical, formerly Eleme Petrochemical. But the amount of gas we flare is enough to sustain 170 of such factories in this state alone. I'm trying to bring to the fore the enormous resources that we sit upon. It's not a cliche when it's described as the treasure base of the nation. We've got to make this treasure work for all of us, and that is a challenge of this summit. Lately, we've been having a flurry of policies, mainly from central bank monetary policies and all that. These policies, to my mind, are driven by the urge to curb inflation and maintain an exchange rate that is what we call suitable to us. Now, I think we're going in the wrong direction nationally in that regard. I think emphasis actually should be on growth. So when we put interest rates so high, today, if you go to a bank to borrow, you're not going to get money less than 35%. That is a disincentive to growth. I understand the challenges of inflation, but we've got to ask ourselves, which is more important, inflation or growth? I believe growth over a period will absorb inflation. Besides, there are so many other instruments to curb excess money in the system. With T-bills at over 22%, treasury bills at over 22%, I'm concerned because if a foreigner or foreign investor should bring about $100 million to invest in Nigeria's T-bills, at the end of the year, he or she would be going back with $122 billion. Do we have the resources? What are we doing to sustain that high level of interest? So if we keep on focusing on inflation, I think we may miss the ball. I think the focus should be more on growth, but trying to manage inflation at the same time. Let me share some stats also with us here so that we can bring to the fore the challenges we have in Nigeria. In 1980, our population was about 72 million. The 4 years between 79 and 83, when President Shagari was in charge, the budget averaged about $25 billion per year. 44 years after, our population is approximately 230 million. Our budget, national budget that is 19 billion. We have shrunk economically, but in terms of human resource, we have grown astronomically. Then you begin to understand the various challenges that we have, whether it is banditry, kidnap, all the ills of society can be seen by this picture. That if 44 years ago, the federal government had in her budget $25 billion to spend on a population of 72 million people, and today less than that amount, 19 billion, then we have a big challenge on our hands. And therefore, we need to focus very, very firmly on growth. My experience in Cross River is quite an interesting one. We realized that we were the poor cousins in this Niger Delta business. I think it's Edo and Cross River that are the poor cousins. In between, we had the wealthier cousins, the Akwa Ibom, Rivers, Delta, Bayelsa. So our strategy was simple. We don't have oil, we don't have the resources that we have, but if we create an environment where they will come and spend their money in Cross River State, I think we could also, part of the oil will rub on us. So that was the context of the tourism policy we pursued, to ensure that our neighbors, the Niger Delta, will spend those vast sums of money that they will be making in Cross River State. Did it succeed? Largely. The beauty of it is that in tourism, the money goes directly to the people, and you're therefore able to have taxable entities, people who have earned an income. And I like to share a story, a brief one, of a family. This was 2008. I was seeing off a friend at the airport, and a lady walks up to me, an elderly lady, and says that she would like to thank me. And I'm like, thank you, but what are you thanking me for? She said, she beckoned on her husband to come along and said, they have a story to tell. Basically, it was this. He was a retired permanent secretary. He thought it was quite infantile for us to be talking about tourism in Nigeria. He was owing a lot of money because he had bought the house he had lived in. 3 of his sons were abroad. 1 had gotten married to a girl from the Czech Republic. And they had furnished the house to receive their new in-law from the Czech Republic. Then lastly, some flight arrangements, everything had to be canceled. You know, civil servants don't like owing money. So he was in debt. And of course, blamed his wife for all this. You're the one that made me spend. You know how we do. When we have to blame it on someone, they blame his wife for everything. She absorbed that, then said one evening she was watching television and she saw an advert on television advertising that if you had spare rooms in your home over the holiday period in Calabar, the Tourism Bureau would like to take it over and put in guests. Of course, they'll come and inspect and they'll guarantee the quality of the guests that come in. It's what they call ABNB or something like that. We didn't have a name for it, but we didn't have enough hotel rooms to accommodate all these people who are finding their way to Calabar. Believe me, one of our biggest catch markets was Port Harcourt, because all the oil service people at Christmas, they had nowhere to go. So she waited for her husband to be out of the house. He was an avid golfer. When he went off to the golf course, and you know golf is quite addictive. When they go in the morning, they don't come back till evening. Then she smuggled the people in the bureau to come in and inspect the house. Now, don't forget the house had been prepared for international, in quote, visitors. So everything was spick and span. The generator was working, there was electricity, the water system was good. And they got 3 executives from oil service companies in Port Harcourt. Each one was going to pay 50,000, if I recall, 40 or 50,000 per room. There were 3 rooms available in the house. And the master bedroom that was meant to host a couple was going to pay 60. So all told, they were going to make about 120, 130 million, 1,000 naira a day. Now, the man was owing about 1.2 million naira, but this is 2006 or 2007. 1.2 million naira was scary for him. When she told her husband what she had done, he blew up. He was upset. Oh, you now want to advertise my poverty. Tell the whole world that we don't have money. You and this infantile governor, you want to bring absolute strangers into our home. He didn't speak to her for a day. But later on he called and said, hey, by the way, how much are they willing to pay? When the figures were shared, he kept quiet. He said, hey, if you want to embarrass me, go ahead and embarrass me. Whatever you want to plan to do. And the shame is ours. Later on, this guest came. They spent about 21 days. And they were decent because we checked them out. But in conclusion, this man made almost 2 million naira from this, or 2-point-something million, after we took our tax, because they pay to the bureau, and the bureau pays the family. After we took our tax from them, he made a profit. So he quickly calls his sons in Europe and says, Christmas is no longer available for you people to come visit. You can come in Easter or any time of the year, but Christmas is a no deal. The point here is that we are so blessed as a people. Maybe I should put it another way. We are so indulged by nature as a people. The environment, climate, resource we sit under, or we sit above, we really don't even know how much we have. Then you can understand why there was a scramble for Africa in 1884. This is a very wealthy continent. And this state is her treasure base. So this conference is so apt at a time where the nation is seemingly losing her economic grip. If you get it right, Your Excellency, you'll be encouraging others to do the same. Too often, we fantasize and speak about the numbers of people that we have. Oh, we are the largest state in terms of population. We never talk about the quality of people. How well trained are they? Are they productive people or just numbers? The world has gone beyond the stage where you celebrate numbers, you celebrate quality. So the nations that we talk about are not the largest nations. in terms of population. That was in the 60s and the 50s, is what they bring to the table. I believe that this summit, after all this is done, we will sit back, we would craft policies for each and every sector of endeavor in this state, so that we would have truly not just a treasure base, but a front runner. You have all that it takes. You have the capital, you have resources, human that is, and you have something that is very unique. You're calm. I thank you.